Hi, everybody. Welcome to the last 30-second podcast. My guest today is Heather Yelland. Heather Yelland is an Australian leadership expert, speaker, coach, and consultant. She is best known for her work in values-based leadership and personal development. She is the founder and director of the Elevation Company, which help leaders and teams align their work with their values and purpose. Heather has over 30 years of experience in psychology, business, people development, system, and family theory. She is an international keynote speaker who works with organizations in Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, United States, and Asia. Her clients include Macquarie Group, Westpac, Nestlé, Origin, Mars, and government departments. Her areas of expertise include value-based leadership, emotional productivity, executive coaching, and organizational culture. She holds qualifications in arts, psychology, business, and family system theory. Heather is a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and the Victorian Association of Family Therapists. She is known for helping people and organizations live with purpose and value. And here we go. Please welcome Heather Yelland. Heather Yelland, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sharul, and it's lovely to be here with you. And thanks so much for reaching out. I'm really excited to share this time with you and your audience.
How did your early life and education lead you to become a people specialist?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in some ways I came into this work a little bit by accident, as is sometimes the case. You head off in one direction thinking that you're going to create some kind of outcome. And there's a twist and a turn in the road and you head off in a different direction. So I think that I grew up on a farm. My family were farmers. And I think there was always so much to do. We were always so busy. And so I found myself kind of being a human doing rather than a human being, if you like. And so I think I was born with quite an appetite for understanding the human experience and how we become who we are and how we make our contribution to the world. But the only framework, I guess, that I had to make sense of that was a religious framework. And whilst there are elements of that were very informative for me, there were other elements of it that didn't make any sense at all. And so I guess I just started some sort of a quest and it led me to studying different kinds of things. When I first went to university, I studied arts. And then as part of that process, I got exposed to philosophy and psychology. And I loved both of those things. And then I thought, I'd really like to do some more in that area. So I did a double degree. And spent a lot more time investigating sort of psychology and, again, just trying to satiate this appetite I had for understanding the human experience. And yes, I love learning and I love growing and I love developing. And so I've done a lot of study over the years. As you said at the beginning in this introduction, I also have a postgraduate degree in systems and family therapy. Theory and a postgraduate degree in business. And I'm currently studying quantum science and epigenetics.
Wow.
So, yeah, which is, well, indeed, it's quite the head spin, to be honest. But it's fascinating really looking at a micro level, understanding how does energy influence the decisions that we make and the impact that we have in the world and the way that we live our lives, let alone the way we run our businesses.
I did some research about you, and
okay.
you mentioned about you hold training in arts, psychology, family system theory, and business, or something like that.
Yes.
What kind of connection do you see between all these fields and your approach to leading the teams?
Yeah, that's a great question. Think of me as a thief, sort of like an ideas thief. So I've done all of these different forms of study and I've sort of thieved or stolen from each part the most useful constructs or concepts from each of those forms of study. and then found a way to weave them together so that I was able to then develop the Elevation Company personal growth framework. And the focus of that is empowering people to better understand what makes them tick, what their beliefs are, and what their values are. And as you said when you were introducing me at the beginning of the session, us understanding our values and the importance of those values and making decisions in alignment with those values is crucial. But I must say, Sharul, that as much as my various forms of study have been incredibly helpful and have taught me quite a lot, raising children has taught me a whole lot more about how to work with people and how to understand people than anything else, I think. So I have 6 children. Well, they're stepchildren and foster children to me. And so I think that the experience of raising children and thinking about our role as parents when we're mentors and we're guiders and we're educators and we're disciplinarians and we're nurturers and we're elevators. And we're all of these things to children. And in many ways, we're all of those things to the people that we lead as well. So, yes, I think it's a combination of all of those things, the forms of study as well as the raising the children as well as my life experiences, that has come together beautifully to give me the foundation of our change framework.
What inspired you to start the Elevation Company? Tell us the personal story behind that.
Yeah, again, it's an interesting story because I think that I got to be an entrepreneur. My parents were very entrepreneurial. My father was always doing something new, something incredibly innovative. And my mum was a really creative person. My parents were not wealthy. They were we were quite a poor family growing up. Well, in cash flow, asset-wise, they were rich because they owned a farm, 6,000 acres of land. But my mum was incredibly creative at finding ways to grow food that fed all of our family and, create beautiful gardens and trees and things like that. So I think that I probably was born with an entrepreneurial spirit. I have an older brother and 2 younger brothers, and we all have our own businesses. Every one of us has our own business. I think what inspired me to start the Elevation Company was I'm the type of person who loves to come up with new ideas and create solutions to problems and those sorts of things. I'm what would be called a big picture thinker. And so in an employment situation, if you give me lots of space and lots of scope to take responsibility for the area that I lead or that I manage, I'm okay. But if you close me in, I get bored really easily. And I think when I get bored, I create problems just so I've got a problem to solve. No, not really. But I think that it was actually quite important for me to have the opportunity to scope really broadly the impact that I wanted to have in the world. We, at the Elevation Company, we have a fundamental belief. We believe that all anyone really wants is to love and be loved, and to be known, loved, seen, heard, and got for who they truly are. And we want that in our work environment just as much as we want that with our family or our loved ones or our community. And so everything that we do at the Elevation Company is focused on giving people that sense of engagement and satisfaction and really building out the business culture so that people feel as though they are an integral piece of the total business puzzle. And so when I started the Elevation Company, it was because I sort of had this framework for human change that I developed in the background since I was probably 15 or 16. I then developed a process of exploring values so that people could genuinely understand what their values really are, rather than just thinking, oh, well, this is what seems important right now. Putting those two together made me think, actually, I think I need to change the business. I was in a leadership business at that time. I was running a leadership business, which I still have. But I then started adapting it to a broader business construct. So at that time, I was working mostly with senior leaders in a business, but I started to adapt it to whole of business response. And then I set up a third company and started teaching it to children, because I thought, gosh, the lives of our children would have been quite different if they'd been taught these things when they were younger. But the school system doesn't do that. Even in our country. So I just sort of decided that it was time to create opportunities for young people to learn this when they're quite a bit younger, rather than wait until they're in their adult lives and kind of feeling stuck. So yes, that's kind of what led to the birth, I guess, of the Elevation Company.
Yeah, that's a great line. Comes from Japanese proverb. Vision without action is a daydream, and action without vision is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I hear a ton of motivational quotes, but this one actually hits different for me.
Yes.
And most quotes feel like background noise. They are like soft music while you scroll the screen, and you barely notice them. They come and go like fleeting notification on your phone.
Yes.
And this one shook me a little. It made me stop for a little while and think. Having a vision without doing anything, just like fantasizing on the couch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You imagine all the things you want in life, but nothing actually changes. Yeah, you start staring at possibility instead of making the shit happen. And you imagining a better life, but nothing moves. You might feel motivated for a moment, but motivation fades fast. And without action, you're doing just stay in your head. And on the flip side, taking action without knowing why is chaos. Yeah.
Yes.
You move, you hustle, but your energy is scattered. You every step feel busy, but you're not getting closer to anything meaningful. You stay busy, but you lost. You exhausted at the end of the day, but have nothing to show for it. And that's how people burn out. That's how things fall apart. And the goods without shadow vision fight over the wrong things.
Yeah.
And the people work in different direction and nothing aligns to them. And I think vision is like the map, and action is like it's like the road trip. Yeah, if you only stay at the map, you never leave the house. If you if you just drive with no map, you end up somewhere you didn't plan to be.
Yes.
And you might move fast, but speed without direction end up to the day ends. And yeah, after that, you decided to take the next obvious step. You don't need to leap a mile. Just stop with a step right in front of you, because the ones that make sense right now. And yeah, I guess that's how daydreams turn reals, and that's how nightmares gets avoided.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's a really lovely statement, and I think that there's another one that you talked about things hitting you. There's another one that hits me, and that is that in this life, and especially for leaders, the longest distance is the one between the head and the heart. And I think that yes, we need vision, and yes, we need action. I also think it's incredibly important to tie that vision to our heart and that action to our head. Because I think many of us live literally like a head on legs, and we ignore the heart.
Yeah.
But if you think about the most significant achievements that have been made in recorded history, they've almost always been when someone has had an inspiration, a heart sense that something bigger is possible, that something better can be created, that there's a better solution. And it's the ability to tap into our heart, our emotional state, and our spiritual state that I think provides the fuel, or as we say, the come from, that guides the action in a way that makes it make sense and makes it very powerful. Lots of people say to me, Sharul, oh yeah, but you're really lucky. And I always say, okay, so what does that mean? Oh, well, you always knew what you wanted and you've got a really clear pathway and, you're financially secure. And I go, hang on a minute. I've changed career 7 times and I'm 61. So I changed career when it was not cool to be changing careers. When I started in my working life, you chose a career and you stuck to it for your lifetime. In fact, a friend that I went to school with has just retired and he literally spent 37 years with the same business.
Mm.
I could never do that. I would just get bored and I'd irritate everyone. So I think that it's a case of, first and foremost, we always say we do a lot of leadership development, and I always say to people, the first rule of leadership is know thyself. Know thyself. Because you can't expect other people to respect you, trust you, follow you, lead with you, lead for you, if you can't do those things yourself. So rule number 1, know thyself. Rule number 2, no matter what else is going on around you, stand in your own truth.
Mm.
I would rather stand alone and in my own truth than follow the crowd down a pathway that I do not believe is respectful or making a difference in the world or honest or impactful.
Mm.
And it's really hard to stand alone, and I've done that a few times. It's really hard to stand alone if you don't know who you are and what you stand for. I think it's a Katy Perry song or something, could be Pink, I'm not sure. But there's a song that says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
The sun is firework.
That's right. Yes. So that's Katy Perry, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Anyway, good on you. Well done. And so, I always think about that song. I have it sort of in the back of my mind because, yes, we want to have a vision and, yes, we want to take action toward that vision. But let that vision be informed by what's in your heart. You came here to make a difference in the world. We always say to people, have a look at the end of your finger. There is evidence. It's called a fingerprint. There's evidence that you were born to make a difference in the world. And no one else can do it. Someone else could have this podcast, Cheryl, but they won't operate this podcast and they won't empower people with the information that you make available in the same way that Cheryl does. They would do it differently. So if you don't live the difference you're born to make, then that difference just doesn't get made. And it's like there's a hole in the universe. So first and foremost, when you're setting that vision, make sure it's aligned to your heart. Make sure that there's a calling for you to do it. And then engage your head and say, okay, if this is where I want to go, this is the vision I want to realize, what are the steps I need to take to get there? Who can help me get there? Who's already on that path that I could then join and learn from? But if it doesn't call to your heart, and I mean, look, you're clearly a much younger man than me. So the great advantage for young people these days, Cheryl, is you have access to so many more opportunities and so much more information. You truly are global citizens. So you don't have to be locked into just one thing for life. But learn the art of stillness. Rumi once said, there is a voice inside of us that does not use words. Be still and listen. And I think that's something, especially in business and especially in so-called developed countries, because our cultures say, get more, get more, get more, get more money, get more likes, get more friends, get more cars, get more televisions. No one needs all of these things in order to have a full heart. We individually get to make a very important choice every single day. Am I going to live for fulfillment, where I go out and I seek it, or am I going to live from fulfillment, where I find it in myself and I take that into my day, because your team will engage with you and respect you and throw their shoulder behind whatever you want to achieve in your business so much more if you come to them as a leader living from fulfillment first.
Do you have a story where you saw someone truly transform because of your work?
Yeah, yes, that's a great question. Oh, many. Maybe I'll give you an individual story, and then I might give you a business story.
Wow.
So a story that's quite close to my heart, actually, because this person now works in my company. About 14 years ago, there was a woman come to one of our events. Her name was Jody, and she did not want to be there. She was brought along by a friend, and I remember it was quite cool at the time, and she had this big cardigan on and she kept wrapping it around herself like, you know, you are not going to reach me. You are not going to touch me. I am not going to express any emotion. And it was just really interesting. In the course of the 3 days, she just opened herself up completely, and she found layers to herself and levels to herself. It was almost as if she came to realize that the picture she had of herself was very limited compared to the experience we had of her. And we call that, you can't see your label from inside your bottle. And then we say, especially if you're swimming in shit wine. So if you're inside your bottle, giving yourself a hard time, feeding yourself negative information, criticizing everything that you do, judging yourself, that's pretty shitty wine. The idea is to get outside that intellectualizing and be still in being able to just notice, not judge, just be curious, just notice who you're being, how you're being, how you're interacting. Try and see yourself through other people's eyes, because then you can truly see your label. And I've had the experience myself many times where I think I've done I'm an international speaker, and I think I come off the stage and I go, oh, that wasn't my best work. You know, I could have done this, should have done this. And the people hosting the events will be so thrilled that I did such an extraordinary job. You know, so there's an invitation to us to think about, how do we see ourselves? Anyway, so Jody went away and applied all of the things that she learned at this 3-day event, and she's now the service coordinator in my main company, effectively the general manager. So yeah, quite the transformation. And she only works part-time with me, and she set up her own business. She's a systems goddess. She's just exceptionally good with system structures and processes. And so she does that with a whole heap of medium and small enterprises in the area where she lives. So that's one example. Another example would be a company that I thought had really good people, really good systems and structures. But the director of the company had a very authoritative approach to how he led the team. And so I spent a little bit of time with him rewiring his beliefs and helping him to see that people don't respect you because they fear you, they just fear you. And if they respected you, they'd give more of themselves, and they'd come forward more, and they'd innovate more, and they'd create more, and they'd tell you about problems when they're only this big instead of waiting until they were this big. And so we worked together for about 3 years, with him first, then with his executive team, and then with all of the leaders in his company, his mid-level and senior leaders. And the company went from, I think at the time that I joined them, they were turning over about just shy of $9 million. And today the company is worth $380 million. And that's not a great measure of success from my perspective, because the most important part is his churn. So the number of staff that come, then leave, then come, then leave, etc., has gone way down. The stabilization of his team is much stronger, and he's attracting really high quality, high caliber staff. And that for me tells me that they're happier. That's the greatest measure of success. The fact that they're happier will inevitably mean that the business is more effective and he makes more money. But I think if your only goal is money, then you're missing the main game, really.
Heather, how do you hope people remember from your programs or long talks after they leave the room?
That's a great question. I know this sounds really funny, but here's my hope when people leave our programs or our consulting experience. I actually don't care what you think about me. What I care about is that when you leave our programs or our conversations or our consulting or whatever it is, that you like you a whole lot more. And you appreciate yourself and you appreciate your talents and your character traits and your skills and your abilities a whole lot more. It'd be nice if you like us. It'd be nice if, even if you don't like us, if you respect us. But we actually don't care about that. We care that when you leave, you feel like you're a better man than you were when you joined us. That would be my primary wish.
You know,
if there was a second one, it would be that you get to live the difference that you were born to make. That would be my second one.
I do some research on your website recently, and you mentioned about leading yourself before leading others. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's probably a little bit like what I was talking about earlier. It's hard to stand at the front of a team or a group or a business or a number of businesses or 1,000 people in an auditorium listening to you speak. It's hard to do that and feel as though you can be with your own integrity if you don't know who you are. So when we talk about lead yourself before you lead others, I say to people in our business, well, it is my business, but we talk about it as our business because everyone that works in the business feels like they own part of the business. As they say, when the money is coming in, we all own the business. When the money is tight, it's Heather's business. But I think one of the things that we talk about is that don't join this company unless you live the stuff that we teach. Because you can't just teach it. If you don't live it, you can't model it. And we're not just teaching it to people, we're modeling it to people. So I think that would be, for me, the key part of lead yourself before you lead others. If you're going to criticize someone's behavior or performance, before you do that, stop and think, what did I do, be, or show that contributed to them behaving this way? Even if your contribution is only 5% of the whole situation, you deal with that 5% and energetically you shift the possibility of that person learning their own lessons. So yeah, that's kind of my sense of what lead yourself before you lead others is all about.
For me, Heather, leading yourself before leading others mean you got to do some inner work first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Spot on.
It's about self-awareness. If you haven't faced yourself, you're not ready to guide anyone else.
Yes.
And you can feel clarity when you're confused inside. People can feel it right away. They hear it in your voice. They see it in your choices. And have you ever watched the speech video from Lolly Daskar?
Yes.
Yeah. I think she's an American leadership coach and keynote speaker. And I watched her TED Talk on YouTube recently. And the title was, "We Cannot Lead Others Without First Leading from Within." And the video had been uploaded around 7 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And she talked about the story of Alexander the Great.
Yes.
Yeah. And at the age of 20, Alexander became king. He was a fearless fighter. and he was undefeated in the battle. He lived about 2,300 years ago. And one day, Alexander led his army to the Persian desert, and the desert was dry, empty, and extremely hot. And about 30,000 soldiers suffered from the thirst. And Alexander also suffered with them. A small group of soldiers went to look for the water, and they searched for a long time, I think. And finally, they found a small ravine with the fresh water. And one soldier filled a helmet with the water, and then he rushed back to Alexander. When Alexander saw the water, he thought about his troop, and he thanked the soldier for their effort. Then he lifted the helmet and he put the water on the ground. And he did this so everyone could see what he did. And yeah, I think Alexander's message was clear. If his soldier could not drink, neither will he. This act showed true leadership. Alexander was not great because he conquered the lands, but for me, he was great because he puts his people first.
Yes.
Yeah, and the takeaway is simple. You can't lead others if you're not willing to lead yourself first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. We talk about, that's a beautiful story, by the way. You might, I'm sure you've already found her, but you might also like to explore some of the work of Brene Brown.
Yeah,
Brene,
I know.
Yeah, doing some beautiful things with this same sort of conversation. But I think that we talk about three types of leadership. You lead from in front, you lead from beside, or you lead from behind. And the first form of leadership is you lead from in front. You have to stand out in front of your team or in front of your business people or in front of your clients, and you need to have the certainty to be a leader and demonstrate your capacity. You can only do that if you know yourself. So do your own work first. Once you've done that and you've earned people's trust and respect and you've demonstrated your capacity, you then want to stand alongside other people and lead in a way that allows them to learn more about themselves and step forward. And one example of this in our own team is that when people come to me with a problem, the first thing I say to them is, Einstein used to say, if I have an hour to solve a problem, I spend 50 minutes defining it. Because it's very easy to solve a clearly defined problem. It's very hard to solve a problem that's not clear. So I always say to them, before you come and ask my opinion on something, come with what we call an Einstein problem. So that's a clearly defined problem. And then give me three recommendations, three suggestions of what solutions you think will work. And then tell me which one I should choose and why. And I did that with my team for 2 or 3 years, my current team for 2 or 3 years. And the reason I did is because if you have to define the problem, you're going to think it through from every perspective first. Then if you have to come up with 3 solutions, you're really going to think through what are the best options for dealing with the problem. And then as you do that, you're going to be analysing every single one of those to decide which one you're going to recommend I should choose. And 90% of the time when you do that, you don't actually need my opinion. You're coming to me for a sense of security, or you're coming to me because you want to pass responsibility for your decision so that if something goes wrong, you could say, Heather made me or Heather told me. Yes. So for 2 or 3 years, literally every time someone came to me and said, oh, can I just run this problem past you? I'd say, sure. Is Einstein here? Oh, okay. And they'd run off and define it and come back with 3 solutions.
Yeah.
What they did was demonstrate to themselves they don't need my opinion. So then they would say, here's the 3 solutions, here's the clearly defined problem, here's the 3 solutions, and this is the one I recommend. And most of the time, even if I didn't agree with them, most of the time I'd say, sounds great to me, why don't you try that? That way they feel acknowledged because they've done their own work. They feel as though they're clever because they've come up with 3 ideas and solutions. And they feel good when they go off and do it and it works out well. I don't need to be the hero in this story. In fact, the best form of leadership from my perspective is where no one has a clue that I've got anything to do with it. Then the third type of leadership is what we call leading from behind. And that's where I stand behind my people. And that's pretty much where we are in the Elevation Company now. Sometimes people reach out directly to me and they get me, just like you have. But most of the time when people reach out to me, they get filtered through my team because most of the delivery work gets done by the team or our stable of specialists. So we have a group of about 8 to 10 consultants who come and join us when we need their support to deliver on a piece of work. I'm the last person that most people would talk to or see. And that's deliberate because I want the team to be able to grow things and expand things and deliver things based on what they love and what they know and what they're good at and the type of work they want to do. I'm just there then to provide the support, the acknowledgement, the celebration, the encouragement, whatever it is at the background, in the background, that allows them to have just that little bit of extra sort of self-belief. And that's sort of how we understand the 3, if you like, styles or phases of leadership.
Yeah. So leading yourself first.
Correct. Yeah. So you might say it's a 4-step plan. 1, lead yourself first, then lead from in front, then lead from beside, and then lead from behind.
Heather, we live in a world full of instant gratification than
Correct.
Delayed gratification. And in your experience, which inner obstacle usually prevent people from reaching their full potential?
Yeah, that's a great question. I totally agree, Sharul. And one of the problems is, so-called smart devices, which ironically are making us dumber. So-called smart devices give us the hit. You put something up on social media and you look to make sure it gets the right number of likes or comments, or that's not. And sadly, what happens with children is we're now training them to become reliant on that external form of gratification. And as you say, we want it now. As opposed to in my generation, if you wanted to achieve something, you worked for it. It didn't just come to you. You worked for it and you worked hard for it. But I think one of the key obstacles, if there was such a thing as a standard constraint across every human being, then I would say it is our limiting beliefs. Each of us has limiting beliefs about ourselves and about our lives and about the world and how we see ourselves fitting into it. And in fact, one of the things that is key, that is fundamental in the way that we engage with people and with businesses, is to help people understand and explore their core limiting belief. We call it their default drama. And we call it that because when we're under pressure, we default to a certain behavior. Whenever we default unconsciously to that behavior, it tends to show up in a way that causes drama. So the idea is to try and find what is that most limiting belief. So, for example, one of mine up until a couple of years ago was I am responsible. So there was something happened in my childhood where I felt I needed to protect my mother and she was under attack. And at the age of 6 or 7 and through my childlike eyes, I made a decision that it was my job in this life to protect my family and keep my mum alive. So I am responsible. Now, in some ways, that's been wonderful to help me grow up to be who I am. And, you know, if you're going to get a business consultant in or a coach or a mentor or something like that, you want to know that they're going to take responsibility. But equally, you want to make sure that there's a moderation in how you do that. And I was being so responsible for everything that I sort of exhausted myself. And, we cannot give from an empty tank. So I would say if there was a universal thing that I'd encourage all of your listeners to stop and reflect on and think about, it would be, what are those beliefs that are buried deep inside me that may even seem like they're hidden, but when you look for them, you can see them in the way that you behave. If you don't think you're good enough, then you're always going to strive to be better. If you don't think you're worthy of love, then you will do something that keeps you at a distance from other people. If you don't think you're clever enough because your older brother or sister got straight A's and you only got E's or D's or something, then you'll always be hustling for some sort of external acknowledgement or gratification. The most important relationship any of us have is the one we have with ourselves, and that starts here. The one that we have with our own heart, and really taking time and allocating time to understand that. There's some new research out, Sharul, and I'll find it and send it to you. I just can't think of the authors of it recently, but just a few months ago, they released some information. They've been doing a longitudinal study on IQ and EQ. And they've actually discovered through their research, which I don't think is going to be a surprise to you, it certainly wasn't to me, but they've discovered through their research that the highest form of intelligence is actually metacognition, which is the ability to sit above your thinking and your behavior and your emotions and just be curious about them and notice your emotions in any given situation. Notice the feelings that you have, notice the thoughts that you have, notice the behavior that produces, and bring an attention to it, but not a judgment. As soon as you judge, you lose curiosity. And when you judge, you lose the ability to influence. So if I judge you to be less than me, I'm not going to be open in a way that allows me to learn from you, and maybe even me to provide something that helps you to learn from me. If I make a judgment about you, the doors of curiosity and the possibility for learning just close. And yet, our cultures often tell us that judgment is what we're supposed to do. When you're at school, you're judged as clever or dumb. Where you live in the city, do you live in the right area or the poor area? There are so many ways in which we judge, and the mainstream media is terrible. I often say to people, if you want to improve the quality of your life, throw your TV out the window. Because the mainstream media just wants you to compare yourself to other people and find yourself lacking all of the time. So I think there's an opportunity for each and every one of us to really stop and think about, what do I believe about myself, about the people that I love, about my community, and about the world around me?
So the first one is limiting belief. You mentioned about that. So do you have another second point or third point you want to add?
Yeah, I think that look, it partners up with the point about beliefs, but I also think that many of us are far more capable than we realize. It's a little bit like the swimming in your bottle. Instead of looking at your label. I think that there is a limitation on each of us where, I don't think there are too many people in this world that have had an experience of the education system in their country that has truly seen them and the unique being with the new unique character traits and qualities and skills and talents that they have in a way that brings that forward. Most of us were schooled into, you're either clever or you're dumb. And so we go through life playing small. We go through life being driven by our protective personality, if you like. And we don't necessarily stop and think about what else would be possible. You are created as a divine flow. You are energetically, you are a divine energy. But you put lots of limitations on yourself or society or family or schooling or whatever. It's almost as if we chose to come here as a divine being and have this experience called life. And the purpose of life is to have us made small so that we can learn what we need to push those things off and be a magnificent expression of our own divinity. So that would be my second one. And the third one would be we surround ourselves with the wrong people. You know, I can't remember who it was, but someone famously said, show me 6 of your closest friends or the people with whom you spend most time, and I will show you the level of success that you're capable of achieving. And the research indicates, and it is quite condemning research, that if we've got friends who, I don't know, for the sake of the argument, earn 100,000 US a year, then we will probably earn around about 10% more or 10% less than that. So if you want to set up a business, it makes sense that you surround yourself with successful business people. If you want to start a charity, it makes sense that you surround yourself with people who have set up and are running successful charities. If you want to create a new idea in the world, it makes sense that you surround yourself with people who are really good at coming up with new ideas and implementing those new ideas into action. I don't know how it is in Malaysia, but certainly in Australia, when you become quite successful, we have this thing called the tall poppy syndrome. And we sort of want to discredit or cut down the people who rise up and achieve great things. And I think it's because most of us don't want to be reminded that we're capable of so much more. You know, if one of my friends suddenly becomes someone who changes hundreds of thousands of people's lives every year, and they come into my space and talk to me about that, it's going to challenge me to think, what else can I do? In fact, now that I say that, that's probably made me realize why some of my friends don't necessarily want me to visit too often, because we do get to impact literally hundreds of thousands of people's lives every year. But I think, you know, there's a joy, and you must know this, Sharul, or you wouldn't be running a podcast. So yes, I was just in the middle of saying there is a joy for each and every one of us in discovering ever more of what we're truly capable of. You know, I would not, if you've come to me 30 or 40 years ago and said, Heather, one day you'll run a big international company and you'll be a very, very sought after speaker that charges thousands of dollars every speaking engagement or thousands of dollars every consulting day, I would have gone, oh, you're funny. And yet here I am. And we say no much more often than we say yes, because I want a balanced life. I want to spend time with my partner. I want to spend time with my children. And my partner's Egyptian, so we travel back and forward between the countries. He likes to go home at least for a couple of months each year. So we want the flexibility. So I don't say yes to everyone who approaches us. But there's always people wanting more of our service. And I think it's because they can feel the difference. Like, here's what I'd say about you, Sharul, and we've only just met. You're a very genuine young man who wants to do what he can to improve the lives of other people. And I can feel that, right? That's an energy. You can't fake that. Well, you could, but I would know it. And so I actually think that people who operate in a congruent way and are aligned to their heart and the difference that they were born to make, they always attract the people that will support them to increase and grow and develop and evolve to the point where they can make amazing things happen in the world.
How do you stay grounded and connected to your own purpose amidst the demands of leadership and growth? I'm asking this because so many leaders comes with a lot of pressure and expectation in their life. The
Mhm.
more responsibility they carry, the easier it is to lose sight of what really matters. They stay busy all day, but deep down, they feel disconnected from themselves. How do you answer to that?
I can see why it's your favorite question. It's also, I think, your best question, Sharul. That's a wonderful, wonderful question. I think you're right as well. Too many leaders construct their world in a way where they're so busy, there's no time to stop and pause and reflect. We have a saying at the Elevation Company, the learning lives in the debrief. So if you're not debriefing what you did in a certain situation or with a certain decision or a certain development within the business, you're missing the greatest learning. Someone famous, and I can't remember who it was, but someone famous once said, every single person should meditate for 30 minutes a day. Every single person should meditate for 30 minutes a day. But if your life is really busy and you don't have time to do that, you should meditate for an hour. Yeah. In other words, intentionally making time to go inward, to be silent, to be still, to enjoy your own company, to explore your own heart, to connect to your own divine energy. If you're not doing that, you're working harder, not smarter. So my answer to your question, what do I do to stay grounded? Every day, my first practice. Some mornings it's just going out and being in my garden. Some mornings it's going to the gym. Some mornings it's literally sitting either on my yoga mat or out on the grass outside and just meditating into alignment, into that sense of connection, and reminding myself, as in reminding, putting myself back into the mind of, I am divine energy, first and foremost. And if I'm not bringing that, then I'm cheating myself, I'm cheating the people I love, and I'm cheating the world that I serve.
Yeah. So you ever tried the meditation?
Absolutely. I'm a very big fan of meditation. I'm a very big fan. And it doesn't have to be, sitting still in the Om position. It could just be going walking first thing in the morning, but being really present in that experience. It could be sitting and looking at a fountain or watching a candle. It doesn't have to be anything, you don't have to be a meditation master that spent 20 years living at the top of Machu Picchu. You just need to practice presence, stillness, and silence. Because in a very loud and busy world, it is those three things that allow us to connect to our source, connect to the divine energy, and bring the best of who we are through to the world.
I think watching the fire is so good for our mental health. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Watching the fire and watching the fish on the aquarium. And
yes, wonderful.
Watching the cows on the grass. Yeah, I think the three things, because I get this three type from the neuroscientist, the American neuroscientist, Andrew Huberman. I watched his podcast.
He's the one who did the research and that led to a lot of medical practices putting fish tanks in their waiting rooms, because he discovered that people's stress levels went down by 30-something percent just while they sat there and watched what happened in a fish tank, in an aquarium. Amazing.
Yeah, you do meditation. So what about me? I stay grounded through my prayer, Heather. Yeah, it is my anchor when life feels loud and full of distraction. I return to that when I feel a pull in many directions every single day. And to me, prayer slow me down. What I mean by that is, in prayer, you got to be honest with yourself. You face your fears, you face your doubts, you face a lot of distraction, and sometimes it reset your mind and heart daily. As what I said before, we live in a world of full of instant gratification.
Yes.
Leadership can be noisy to you. Growth can feel like constant chasing, but when I pause for prayer, it's like the peace coming inside of me.
Yes.
Yeah, I take a moment to breathe. I take a moment to reflect, and I remember what actually matters. And honestly, that peace, you can't put a price on it. And I try to carry
Absolutely you can't.
I try to carry that energy into the rest of my day too, whether it's being patient with someone, helping a friend, or just not letting the small things throw me off. And sometimes I think people underestimate the power of simple things.
And it's interesting, Sharul, that you say the power of prayer, because there's some research. I'm just trying to think of the name of the people who did that research. But they basically, in the Bronx, in some of the poorer communities in America, they brought together a group of women, and every week at a certain time of day, the women just sat there for 2 hours and prayed and meditated and prayed and meditated and prayed. And there was a very recognizable decrease in violence, in theft, and in general crime. So, usually people like busting into a shop and taking things or whatever. There was a recognizable decrease, and in fact, in what they call fist-to-fist combat. So personal physical aggression in the area where these people were praying, and they were praying for peace. They were meditating for peace in the Bronx. These women did it every week, same time. I think it was a 30% decrease in hand-to-hand aggression during the time that they were praying, and for about an hour or two afterwards. Wow. So, and this is the great joy of, as much as it's stretching my brain, I can assure you, and stretching my heart, this is the great joy of what we're discovering through neuroscience and epigenetics. When you understand that everything is energy, including you, and your primary job is to remove the obstacles to that wonderful divine flow of divine energy, then you look at life in a very different way. I love this. That's great. I really respect what you're saying, and I think it's wonderful that you do it.
Have you ever considered walking away from this work?
Yes, sometimes. Sometimes it's heavy lifting. I think, there's a couple of things I'll say in response to that. One is I do fundamentally think that the education system around the world is broken. And so one of my goals for my semi-retirement is to create a viable alternative to the education system. In fact, we've sort of done that. We're piloting that at the moment. We call it Golden Age Learning. And it's very much community governed and directed and self-directed learning that has the children build out their own learning experience. And it's beautiful. It's wonderful to watch. So sometimes I feel like I want to deviate from this work more toward that. But in a sense, Sharul, all I'm doing is taking the same kind of experiences and information and putting it into a different context. Instead of working with businesses and adults, I'm wanting to work with children and communities. The second time that I feel a bit of an inclination to move away from this type of work, it's probably the result of me not doing a good enough job of caring for myself and exercising compassion and love toward myself. So if I've had a really, really busy time, or I haven't prioritized my own care or well-being, or I haven't been to the gym or had that time in the garden or had that time praying or meditating, and I give past my tolerance level, then sometimes I go, this is all too hard. But it doesn't last very long. It's usually just a couple of days of feeling ordinary, and then I'm back on the horse.
Was there a season in your life when things didn't go as planned?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. I think I was about 3 or 4 years into running the Elevation Company in its current form. And for about 2.5 years, we'd reached the same number of people, we'd made the same kinds of impacts, and we'd earned the same sort of money. And I remember contacting one of my business mentors and saying, his name is Paul. And I said, Paul, I don't know what's going on. It's not working. We're not making enough money. We're not making enough impact. We're not reaching enough people, da-da-da. And I happened to get him when he was on safari in Africa. And he said to me, Heather, I'm here at a safari in Africa and I'm sitting on the balcony and I'm looking out over the Sahara. And he said, or the Serengeti, I should say. And he said, I know that out there's lions, there's zebra, there's antelope, there's elephants, there's giraffes, there's all sorts of wonderful, incredible animals that I would like to experience. And he said, I've got 2 choices. I can get in a safari and go out and hunt for them and hope we see them. Or I can put out the right food, water, and energy and wait for them to come to me. And I went, wow. It was like he'd reached through the phone line and gone slap. And I really got it. Well, I'd been hustling, I'd been chasing and driving, and it was almost as if one of my team, we were talking about this one day, and I said, it sounded like what Paul said to me was, I've walked into a bar, I've seen a handsome man, and I've walked up to him and said, do you want to date me? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you want to date me? Do you? Do you? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Whereas if I was to walk into a bar and see a lovely man and say, hey, I just wanted to wander up and let you know, you seem like a really lovely person and I love the energy that you're giving off, and I'll leave you to it. I just wanted to tell you that. And he'd be like, oh, she's lovely. And so I think that there's a lesson there for all of us about, really staying connected to our heart, recognizing that the challenging times are there only to help us refocus on what we're offering, what we're doing well, what unique skills and capacities and qualities we have to share with the world, and why it matters so much to us.
What feel most important for you to create or contribute in the next chapter of your life?
That's a good question. I think I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And for me, the first thing that comes to my heart is I want to be able to come to the end of my life and know that I have genuinely done everything I could possibly do to elevate the human experience. That's our sort of overarching intention. And to really recognize that all any of us wants, as I said, is to love and be loved and to be known, loved, seen, heard, and got for who we truly are. And to help as best I can, do my part to help create a world full of connection and belonging and cooperation and community and collective creativity, because there's too much divide and conquer. There's too much judgment. There's too much division. The world has always been a better place to live when we focus on staying connected to source, staying connected to ourselves, and sharing the energy of that connection with the world.
So, Heather, thank you once again for taking the time to join me today. And I truly enjoy listening to your story and hearing your perspective, your insight. I hope everyone really took away something meaningful from this conversation. So,
Thank you, Drew.
Heather, where can people find you online and keep up with your work?
Yeah, great. They can find me best at theelevationcompany.com. theelevationcompany.com. So if you go and Google theelevationcompany.com, you'll find our website, and it describes all of the different ways that we could assist you. You might like to join our men's program, MEN, My Elevation Network. You might want to join our women's program, Elevate Her. You might need some mentoring or some consulting support, but anything that you want, you can reach out to us once you've had a look at the website, and our team would be happy to help you to define what it is you need. And if we're not the right people for you, we'll also connect you with the right people. But yeah, happy to do what we can to support.
Yeah. I also encourage listeners to explore Heather's resources. I include the links to her social media and other platforms in the show notes. So take a moment to check them out and see what resonates with you. And if something stands out, I love to hear your thoughts, and feel free to share your reflection below. I've been reading them whenever I can. So Heather, we reach the final part of our conversation. It's my favorite way to close each episode. I call it the last 30-second segment. Before we land off the plane, I want to leave our audience with something that sticks, something that they can carry along with them long after the episode is over. You think about those people listening right now, and some may be standing at a crossroad, and some might be searching for clarity or direction, and some may have been told it's too late in their life, and others might feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or fighting the battles that we can't ever see. And I want you to imagine that you could speak directly into their hearts and minds. Maybe you could offer them one insight or one action to take right now. So Heather, I pass the mic to you one final time.
Yes.
If you had 30 seconds to inspire or motivate someone, what would be your final message you share with them?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. What a lovely way to finish. So thank you. I would say this: the nature of problems is to make us feel as though we are alone with them. But you're never truly alone. So have the courage to reach in. And if reaching within feels too hard, have the courage to reach out. Because as human beings, we are wired for connection and belonging. We are wired to look out for and look after one another. Usually the only barrier to you getting the support that you want and need is your sense of vulnerability and your fear of asking. Because 99% of the time when you ask, you will not only receive what you need, you will receive more than.
So beautiful. Heather Yelland, everybody. So Heather, thank you so much for coming to the show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom at the same time. See you again. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Cheryl, and thank you to all of your listeners. I appreciate the time. Take care.